foundation update this week. We actually got the foundation president. Yes, so this is a rare occurrence. So thank you for being here. We appreciate you guys coming to see the presentation.
My pleasure. We're really excited because we've started with our planning for this year's Masquerade Ball as our primary fundraiser.
Yeah.
And we just heard that the two people that we contacted to be honorees, one is Gregory McGuire and the other Paul Rondell, have both agreed. So we think it will be a solid.
Sorry, just that deserves a round of applause.
So needless to say, we are going to look for your full support by participating on the honorary committee.
Here are your invitations.
And secondly, what's really important, if any of you have any friends, family, business associates that you can think of that would be willing to, A, be a sponsor, B, have a vacation place or have some connection with activities, we really need auction items that are going to draw some interest. And unfortunately, both Jane and I have sold our homes that were the auction items in previous years, so we don't have that to offer. So think about if you know anyone that'd be willing to give up a long weekend someplace, or you have some connection to someone. Services are always good if someone has a service to offer, but we'll be looking for those things. And thank you, and have a great meeting.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
On tour, listen, it's a gated community. Everything is all inclusive, everything.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
All right, so I need the foundation.
We still have to do the check register, and it says MBT signatory approval, so I think we should
Yeah,
back up
let's
to those.
jump back up to that. Check registry. Everyone have that? My stuff's over here.
Anybody have comments on the check registry approval? I'll make a motion to approve the check registry. Like January to March.
A second? By Barbara. All those in favor? Opposed? Adopted. Okay, so MBT signatures.
Okay, so there's something in your packet from NBT, and as Brian and Caitlin and Herb know, we've gone to great lengths to get it signed. But I'm going to just be blunt and say I don't 100% understand, but apparently we need to have a board resolution, the language of which is contained somewhere in that 3-page document from NBT, which is in your packets. Now, we could probably just find the appropriate language later, but have you vote on it now if you want to do that.
Is this it?
That's the document. Yes,
So it's the one with the signatures in the front?
It's all those resolutions.
I'm
Oh, it's
assuming-
all those resolutions.
I'm assuming it's the second page, is the resolutions. Yeah. I don't want to read all this, so hopefully everyone's found it, so they can read it. And we'll have it in the minutes when we do the minutes, so that no one can see it, but it's quite extensive. We need to adopt this as a.
And it needs to be done every year. We had a hiccup in July this year when we were doing it. We had somebody sign it that was the wrong person. We had been an office holder in that board earlier. And then when we had resignation of our secretary, kind of fell by the wayside. And then we went to get some checks signed in February when we were not having a board meeting, and we had to figure out who was able to sign checks. So Carol called over to NBT, and they said, well, actually, nobody at the moment. We don't have a resolution on file. So we rounded up Brian and Herb and Caitlin and myself and Margaret, and we got it signed. So my understanding is that you have made this resolution every July when you authorize the bank. So I don't think we need to do it before.
Oh, no, what happened?
I opened it too, but.
What happened
Explaining it.
when you opened it?
Well, I didn't go into any further than just opening it, though, yeah.
You didn't click on any of the HTML codes, did you?
No,
Okay.
because I didn't
HTML
understand.
codes in the attachment?
Huh?
In the attachment, there were codes?
There were 3 HTML attachments to that document. If you clicked on one of them, we all would have gotten an email because it just went into, it would go into your address book and send out a false message to everybody. That's what happened to them. Sorry, Herb, you just made me lose a heartbeat.
Alright, so we have a motion to.
Brian, can you make a motion?
Oh, man.
I can, you should.
Okay, you should, please
But
should.
I shouldn't. But isn't it, but I'm the one appointing, I guess your guys' approval though.
We're approving your appointment.
Okay.
So you're appointing.
To approve the appointment. Can I get a motion?
Do we need a motion, or do we just vote?
Actually,
We need a motion.
You need to approve, the board needs to approve it.
Herb just made the motion.
Herb made the
I
motion.
second.
By Maria.
Nuri,
Okay.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There's actually something else I need to add to this. Carol is going to resign, not just from the policy now, she's going to resign from the full board. She's
That's good.
effective after our next meeting, so I think that's April 13th. She's dealing with a lot of health issues, in fact, yeah, so that's why she agreed to stay on until after our next meeting. She's going to give me a letter to resign effective, I think, April 13th, but, we don't have that.
How does that affect the election?
The 3 vacancies, I am very adamantly against appointing someone for that short period of time, so, alright, good, alright, so,
May anyway.
yes, so they wouldn't take I guess they would be like, they would take effect immediately then? After the election, okay, which is good.
And they'd actually, if you appointed someone, serve until June 30th, right? 'Cause
Yes.
that's when the term ends.
So,
So we could appoint whoever gets voted in immediately.
which is what,
Ah,
And then they'd have a one-year term because they would not be on the top 2 that were elected.
That's correct.
It would be the remainder of Carol's term.
yeah, the person who's third would
I
be,
think Carol would.
I think Carol does have 1 year,
When you're
but I'd have to check that.
Or when it's the third.
So she does it at the April meeting, the amount of time it would take to appoint somebody, and then also approve at the May meeting. You're just gonna, make no
Yeah.
difference.
6
I
weeks.
really don't love appointing people, so, okay, so it's good. Okay, so that's, it's a loss, but we'll move on from it. Karen's been a great advocate for the library, so her loss will certainly be felt, but we'll move on. So, and it might be nice just for, if you're interested to give her a call to kind of say how much you're gonna miss her, because I think she'd appreciate that. So, okay, let's go to committee reports. Building and grounds, long-range planning.
Want me to? Okay, so, we'll go, if it's okay, right to approval or to discussion of the Family Dan's bid and contract, and hopefully approval. So, Family Dan's was the low bidder, at $264,769 for the heat pumps, building management system, water service, project.
Did you say that number again?
264,769. And so we've been in touch with Family Dan's, and it turns out that it was our obligation to write the contract. That's the way the engineering documents read. So the law firm, Durbin and Perlazzo, took the standard AIA document, which you have in your packet, made some minor adjustments to it, and proposed it as a contract. I have sent it to Family Dan's, and they are reviewing it now. As I understand the situation, I'm going to kind of quote Brian in the phone call we had. By law, we have to take the lowest bid because it's been determined to be a responsible bid by the engineering firm. But also, until we sign a contract, we can't embark upon the project because we don't have a contract. So, I sent Family Dance the contract on, I believe, Monday of this week, and, I was kind of thinking they would turn it around fairly quickly, but they didn't by today. So, what I think we ought to do, and I haven't done this before, I bet you have, is, accept their bid, subject to a contract that is not yet finalized. And then at least I can call them. I already talked to them about setting up a meeting, but both Family Dance and our lawyer said you really should wait until your meeting to discuss the finalization of the contract.
How many bids were there?
10. And the low, I mentioned, the high was about 378,000. So it was great that there were 10 bids. So I'm also pleased that it's a local company that can do it. So I think that we need a resolution to accept their bid
I believe that's also correct.
pending a contract. So,
I'll make a motion to accept Family Dan's bid of $264,769 for the, whatever it was, that project.
heat pump project.
Project.
Is there a second? Second by Jason. All those in favor? Opposed? It is adopted.
The only other thing I would say about the design steering committee, unless, of course, Jason has anything to add, is that, we continue to have joint meetings, between the Buildings and Grounds Committee and the, design steering committee. So Jason's committee has stepped up and is part of that process now. So,
I wanna jump in here. So, I think the meeting went really well tonight. I think we as a board, because I couldn't really think of a way to engage. So we sent an email out and got 50 people from the community that were interested in getting input. We then sent another email out asking those people to come tonight to kind of get a sense of what our presentation was. So those were some of the people that were here. People responded that they want to be involved. So I'm trying to try to get them involved in some way. I just don't necessarily know how. You may have heard we thought about having maybe 2 meetings and getting a group of people in to kind of discuss it. Does anyone have any other suggestions or any other way? I think
The only other suggestion I could think of was to take the presentation to other organizations.
that's good. And I think I could have the presentation so that Paul Mays doesn't have to go everywhere.
what do you have in mind?
Could be a church, it could be
The McCownville Improvement Association.
someone like that, yeah. Just any
Chamber of
organization.
Commerce,
Mhm.
store.
Chamber of Commerce.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a phenomenal idea. And just to give you, we originally wanted to have the vote with the school district when they're gonna have their vote. They're gonna have their vote, per our meeting last night, they intend to have it at the end of October. It was the sense, and certainly correct me if I'm wrong, that they did not want to have our vote and their vote at the same time for a number of reasons. One, it's confusing. You're essentially having 2 capital projects. We'd be likely sending out mail, they'd be sending out mail. There's certainly the political implications, and it's, quite simply their rodeo on this.
I think it's bad for us.
You said October, then it's.
End of October is when they're gonna go out to, that's when they anticipate going out to the public to bond. So, barring any sort of strong feeling here, I'm willing to let something go slide and find our own date, which would likely be the May of next year, when we go out to the public for our general budget.
And we could still work with them in a couple of ways. We can't work with them architecturally because they're not going to use Paul Mays to design their capital project. But we can work with them on the engineering firm and the construction management firm, and probably construction administration too. Which will,
You're saying go out for our vote in over a year?
Yes.
I don't think that's a good idea.
We're
We're getting too far away from, we're putting this together, we introduce it to the public today when they come to see this, and then we're gonna push it out a year from now?
We certainly can do it sooner. I don't have a super strong feeling either way. I don't think we're ready to have a vote yet. We still need to talk about, the finances of it, how we're gonna finance it. So, that to me is a major
That gives us time to go out and try to get some
Yes.
financing, I think, and try to
probably about 10,000. We did that last time. I'm not against talking about it at all. If we want to do it at a separate vote, I'm not inclined to even, I know it's only 10,000. I just don't want to, throw away 10,000 when we can do it for May. But there are certainly concerns that if it's on the same general vote, maybe we don't have as many votes, or we don't do as well. I don't know. We played that game last time and it didn't work.
I'm going to put this out there. It's not impossible for you to have the vote on with the election vote because the school district encompasses parts of Schenectady, New Scotland, and some other things. We don't have those jurisdictions.
We're exactly the same as.
Yeah, we run into the same boundaries. Yeah, but if you have political.
We
calendar-
can't, we're not allowed to,
Okay.
the school district asked because they were thinking maybe they would do theirs. But they contacted the Albany County Board of Elections and were told they cannot have their vote on the same day as the general election.
Sorry.
And it seemed like they were saying they don't want us to have it at the same time as.
No.
And it has to be in the elementary schools where they have their, where people are registered from for the school board elections.
Well, so this is one of the many things to think about, is when we have to vote. Personally, I'm inclined for May, but, I can go either way if someone has a strong feeling one way or another.
Now, you're saying this May is off the books.
I don't, I was gonna say,
Cleveland went up to
Peter,
yeah, it's a little far, but not that.
to partly address Peter's point, I took, and mentioned this last night at the joint meeting, but I took a webinar from the head of the DLD, Department of Library Development Construction Program, Tuesday, and she said on the webinar that state ed approval was 9 months, and when I brought that up last night at the meeting, the school district people laughed and said maybe more like 16. So we're going to be waiting a long time, no matter what, because we can't build anything without state ed's approval.
We can't get their approval until we pass the.
Okay. Well,
Isn't that true or not?
you can get their approval by hiring an engineer and designing it.
So we can't move for approval before we get the bond passed?
Look into that, that would
I think
be,
we
that would be
can.
ideal.
I think we
We
can.
can, and that's great.
It's the same as the heat pump project, which
Then
we
we
applied
just,
for, didn't
get
get
us
it.
approved it, and then we can move forward.
Yeah.
The only problem with that is all this money in engineering fees, architectural fees and all that, and then if it gets
Right.
voted down, then we lost that.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll take that gamble, but.
I agree, I think it's better to take the gamble, depending how much those fees are.
There is a fast track where you can now pay $8,000 and they'll look at your project in only 6 or 8 months instead of 16. Anyway.
So that's something else I want you to think about. It's a long time. I don't know if I see another option, but I agree with you, it is a long time. But, if you see another option, feel free to put it up, or at least think about it in next month to share with us.
It gives us 16 months to put a penny jar in the lot and have all the kids bring their pennies.
And also keep in mind, because it has to be held in the school district, we have to kind of keep it on a day when there's not school. So that's kind of another nice little challenge for us, so.
Because of the gymnasium.
Yeah, schools.
They usually have school on election day, a lot of the schools are usually spend in public places.
Strike that from record. Okay, well, either way, think about, not only now, we have plenty of things to think about, but think about when the election might be. My kind of thought is May, but think about it. Then the second thing is kind of go back to how are we gonna get the people that contacted us, the 50 people, how do we get them involved? Does anyone have, I kind of put out, or it wasn't my idea, but the proposal, have kind of 2 meetings, get their input, get them to really kind of sit down, look at it, and, maybe get them to really talk more in a more comfortable space than maybe this was.
Brian, do we know how many of those 50 showed up today with Brennan?
Yeah, most of the people that showed up tonight were on that list, so, but we have 8 or something, so, and then 4 more said I would love to come, but you only gave me 2 days' notice, so I can't, I got something else going on tonight. Couple thoughts there is that Paul Mays, of course, asked me to call him tomorrow, and he may have some thoughts on that process. The other thing is, we, perhaps naively, and I'll take the blame, but we did add 2 people to the committee, Mark Grimm and Julie
probably find someone, I mean, is every single person who contacted you, I guess it was through our blast email system, so they're all, we're library users.
Yeah.
So there's probably no one who
But
was,
you said that we have 12,000 on the list, and then in Mark's note, you said that we sent it out to like 1,500.
Oh, okay.
So there's.
I don't call people, yeah, yeah.
But what I like about this meeting is that I think all the questions that they had were answered.
Yeah.
And so people will feel that, I mean, this is a draft, and people have to understand that, and I think they do. So if you have those two additional meetings, you know, one like you said in the afternoon, maybe another one in the evening, a different evening than say a board meeting, which
Yeah.
apparently is a conflict with some people. And we just keep sending out that message that this is a draft, we want everybody to participate, and don't hesitate if you have an idea.
The other thing is now, you know, we had the enterprise here, so they've asked for a copy of that presentation, so we can presume it'll be in the paper or at least on the website. So we might as well start embracing a word like renovation or renewal or enhancement or expansion. Because up until now, you know, and I'm sort of guilty of this, and maybe you guys are too, but we've been sort of, you know, working on something but not saying anything to the public about what we're working on. So if we are in support of it as a board, I think we have to start kind of embracing it and saying, yes, we're asking to add 6,000 square feet to the library. Now, I don't know that you're gonna say that yet, and I don't know when you vote, you know, like, we need to work that out. But I don't think we should be, you know, trying to hide anything, certainly.
No,
You know,
I
so.
think you're using the term renewal.
Mhm. I'd like to add her. If I added one person, I'd say the person that came up with the word renewal, you know.
She's not even in our library, she's not,
Oh, she's not a Gilderland patron?
she's a patron, but she's not a resident.
Oh, okay, well, that's not good.
She's Upper Hudson,
Okay, okay.
she just comes to this library.
Well, why don't we try, at the very least, why don't we commit to having the 2 meetings? We'll work out some names with Paul. You know, if people are unhappy with not being added to a committee, refer them to you.
Yeah. Please do, yeah.
Right.
We want everybody to feel that they have a vehicle for input.
Right.
And just because you're not on this
Yeah.
little committee, doesn't really matter, you know what I'm saying?
In fact, we might find that the design steering committee is no longer useful. You know, it may become a board project, and you know, we do it through open meetings because the initial design has been done. You know? So I'll ask Paul whether we still need the design steering committee. You know, the next step is, well, we dissolved that committee and made it a board matter. We're going to have a series of public meetings.
Let me ask you, Chris, just because 2 of the comments were about the children's section so far away, was there any of the designs, like the children's section, closer?
Yeah, originally the
It's the one in the back.
children's area.
It's that much closer back.
Was it like up along the top
It's
here?
on the top.
Yeah, what I heard people saying is it'd be better to have it here, but remember I asked that question the other day, why did you move away over here? Because they're worried about the noise, the staff was worried about the noise. But they make a very good point, you have grandparents trucking their kids off to try to find this, and
I think another entrance is a good idea.
Yeah.
Is another door?
Right.
Oh, I know it's possible.
Well, they had one on the. It was called a staff entrance,
Staff entrance.
which I thought was kind of an odd concept. But if it's a children's entrance, I can get with that.
I think
So
they move that over to
Well,
here.
then it won't be
that's about.
only children use it. Anyone who wants to
Correct.
Yeah, it
will
makes
use
sense.
it, then you have less control over, you know,
Sure.
something.
And in fact,
space might be larger, actually,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
door
it's
that
there.
we're seeing.
Yeah. I mean, that's what first jumped out when I was like thinking about 2 entrances, but you know, if a bad guy wants to get in, a bad guy's in.
You might have materials escaping through that.
Sure. And the other thing is you're not going to have 2 circulation discs, so it could only be an entrance. It could also be an exit, really, unless you were leaving without any.
Is that
Yeah, but the
possible?
same people who enter will want it to be an exit.
Yeah, because they park near it.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's that far. Everybody-
No, I think it's a little bit of
That's a
a.
big life for.
The Paul keeps saying that, like, with everything more, you're gonna be able to see it, you know, like 10
assume there'll be baby changing, stations, at least in those, restrooms.
Yeah.
Like everything is, it's ready for them, and again, this library is not huge, I don't feel like you're
Yeah.
gonna get lost.
It's gonna create problems with another entrance, like a whole.
Yeah, no,
Whole bunch of
I would
people.
actually feel more uncomfortable with a separate entrance
The
than,
thing is, you're listening to two people
Yeah.
who are grandparents who apparently access with their little kids.
right,
And, you know, if we're going to try to be sensitive, we'll just see how much more.
oh, no, I'm not
kind of
trying to
feedback that we get.
negate what they're saying or anything like that, I just feel like at the end of the, maybe it looks daunting on paper, but I do feel at the end of the day, Paul Mace has done this so many times, we'll make it accessible for people to get through. I by no means,
For me, from a safety standpoint, having that much space between the front door and our children is a positive.
The other thing is, I don't think it's gonna save you steps personally. They're gonna be parking in front of this building,
Yeah.
walking way over here to come in versus walking
Yeah.
there. Where it's,
These steps are inside, and they'd be
If
outside.
their child is
Yeah, the
well
elements.
behaved enough to drag them through there, maybe they shouldn't be at the library anyway.
And then, bringing your child through the adult section where they can see adults reading, it just instills in the children that there's a lifelong, learning process of people coming to the library, and that there's something for them for the rest of their lives and not just as children.
There was one other thing, I'm sorry, Robert, go, yeah.
She just made a very, very good point that I hadn't thought about, is that oftentimes in a business area, for nursing mothers, you would have a little expanded bathroom area with a pair of.
oh, like in Babies R Us, that they, yeah,
Yes.
the little,
Exactly.
You mean like a
place for the
breastfeeding area?
Yeah.
He has one, on a different drawing, he has an area here. In fact, that could be with those little tiny words. So, yeah, it's a breastfeeding area. I don't know why he has it there, but he at least has it.
Well, could you at least mention to him that he may want to just expand that enough so you can get a chair in there?
Mhm.
So that they could.
maybe a chair or something, because I know also if you have two little ones, you have a newborn, and then the little one may be at a program, and you can't really leave them, but maybe make it in a way that's a little bit, like you're right, secluded, but you're still able to see your child.
Right.
And usually, it's
And
people
separate from
don't,
the restroom.
yeah, yes.
Because it shouldn't be in the bathroom.
No.
No.
For a number of reasons.
It's not really noticeable anyway.
Right.
You're just sitting
People
there.
are doing what they're gonna do, but still, you do feel subconscious to a certain point,
yeah, I think it's
There-
a good word.
There was one comment that, since we're kind of talking about it, that I wanted to make, and I just want to get your guys' opinion. It was, meeting rooms are kind of my big thing, it seems like, there's always a ton of people reserved for the meeting, right, Jenna? Which is great, I love that, but, it would be nice maybe, and I know we have now created a new meeting room, but they seem both very small, so, and here's my example, is when we have these board meetings, it sounds like we're gonna have to take over this room, so now there's only the big Helderberg room, or these two smaller meeting rooms.
Well, will this still be available for meetings?
And
This
my,
right here?
local history, I don't think
Yeah.
so. Well, and so, when I have,
Also do the Annabelle room, I mean, that's another option. I don't know.
so, and generally, I think he said like 10 to 12 people. Like, I could have meetings with 10 to 12 people at my house. I can't have a meeting with 20 people at my house, and that's like the perfect size for that room and the entire set. And that's what I think we lost with this. So I have one suggestion, and certainly, I don't claim to be an expert in meeting rooms, but if you took this and kind of extended this all the way over, or at least partially over, you expand the cafe, this now meeting room becomes maybe a little bit more reasonable size, or maybe you take away one of the study rooms.
So
and
that's the
then-
existing meeting room, right? Am I wrong?
No, it's chopped off quite a bit to go, and that's the problem. So, I, wanted to run that both by
I
you.
would take off that study room and make that larger, I agree with you 100%.
I know what the actual, if you can tell you what the actual size is there.
It's definitely small.
You can. I tell you what, guys, most of the time we're open, 3 study rooms are not enough. Like, one of my general criticisms of this plan is that
everything that I've read, it seems like people are using books less, but maybe libraries more for programming in meeting rooms. So,
And, you know, I would just say this, Brian, I don't foresee there being protests tomorrow outside of the library because we use this space tonight, you know what I mean?
no, but you're preventing, I know no one's going to be protesting, but you're preventing a group that may want to do it, have to go somewhere else. And that's what, that's the problem.
I think we're doing it once a month
No
because
one has an absolute right to use the library for meeting space, and we're making it available, first come, first served basis as a service to the community. No one has, an absolute, right, well, you have to let us, because we're such and such.
I know that, but I guess I want as many people to come in as possible, not, us to be like, well, it wasn't so much so that we're going to bog it down. I just meant our size groups are going to be the normal size groups that come in. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of smaller groups, but
Is there a way to coordinate this, this room?
He talked about that design
For maybe
meeting
have
and said it wouldn't
something
work.
we could think on a little bit and come back to you.
yeah. Well, this is my.
I know what you're saying. I don't want to think about it.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of strong feelings, but this one I feel very strongly on, so I'm going to be a kind of a pain about this because I feel
So
really
the
strongly.
Palo Center room is gonna not be that size anymore?
It's going to be quite a bit smaller. And we're only going to have one size room like that. So,
So where are they gonna?
because it currently goes to like, I think right here.
He's saying this in a letter.
Oh, it's too big.
If it comes here.
They're basically putting a cafe in where most of there's no way that it is not. They expand.
Remember, because we had that one storage area inside the house on the road right now.
Let's talk to Paul. I would be
That's
blown away because this meeting room and this meeting room are probably roughly the same size right now, and now this one seems quite a bit smaller in this diagram. You're right. It's maybe not to scale.
It's definitely not scale. It says it.
Yeah. And I think that space, like I said, is that storage area to the right in that room. That's that right there. Because this is the front right now of the building. You're sitting out here, there's a little bench right there.
This is going to be my only pet peeve in this entire thing is if we are creating less meeting room space, I will not. Yeah, I'll be the biggest pain there will be.
Well, is there much of, where a group, asks for the room and then overstays their welcome and another group can't get in then?
Like it happened to us the
Yeah.
other day. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
there's
that
that's
could be,
frequent.
enforced, okay, you wanted it from 3 to 6, and we all gave it to another group at 6, so you've got to get out at 6.
we enforce that multiple times a day. Yeah. So.
The other thing, this to me is one of these grand architect ideas that wastes a lot of space. It looks beautiful, but it wastes a lot of space. You could perhaps
Sort of the
expand
foyer.
that. Yeah.
So you could expand that meeting room.
The nothing
Yeah.
space.
And I was just throwing out an example about what I would possibly, but either way, I don't care how it happens, but that's my thing. I do not want to lose meeting room space. That's my big thing. And, creating lots of little meeting rooms is not what I'm thinking about.
And that room is perfect for our size.
Yeah, exactly.
Going into anything smaller.
I think you wanna make-
And I think a lot of groups are like that, where they're our size, that's why they come to the library, is because if they were any smaller, they'd probably just go to someone's house.
I agree.
So, this space right here, if you take that, Barbara, I wouldn't make it smaller. I mean, I've been on the board now for 6 years, and I had no idea that plaque thing is out there with the name of previous board members, because it's so dark out there, so it just opens it up. And gives you a space.
It still could be opened up if that came down another.
Yeah, we could bring the meeting room down to that.
Yeah, a little bit.
I want to ask Brian, so that when I talk to Paul, would you be happy if he was able to carve out another room the size of the Norman Skill room, or are you looking for something the size of?
No, not that. We need at least 2 enormous size rooms.
Just like what we used to. That would be the same size as what we have.
That is what you're saying. Yeah.
And if by some grace of God that is the same size as this one, then,
It's not the same size as this one.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The room we usually meet in is half the size of this one.
Yeah, and that's, that's my biggest thing. I don't feel very strong about many things, and I could go either way, but, this one is, I do feel strongly on, and I don't want to, and I don't believe creating more reading room space, we should increase the size of the library. I'm saying we should decrease the size of the circulation, the reasons I suggested. So, as it, goes through the process, that's what I feel strongly believe in. So,
It's possible we can bring this whole thing out a little bit.
and that was my first suggestion, but whatever has to happen.
Can I ask Paul tomorrow, can you send an email and find out if that size,
If that size,
if that size of the room really does change?
of what is,
What is currently there?
Tower Center.
If that reading room stays the same.
Well, that's a good question, but
Is this room the size of the Tower Center?
what Brian's saying is he wants a room this, another room this size.
And one thing,
And I mean,
Could we shorten the
that's fine.
cafe?
But yeah,
yeah,
what's that?
maybe we could shorten
Could we
the
shorten
cafe.
a little bit the cafe, does that have to be?
Or make it modular there, where you can make it.
Could be big enough.
I say decrease the circulation. I don't,
I think we just come
Not the
in.
cafe?
what's that?
Not the cafe?
Well, we can if we want to, but if I would suggest the
Eliminate
circulation, because to me,
But would it then be shut out if you
That may
decrease the
happen.
circulation, or am I
well-
understanding this incorrectly?
well, I mean, the way I was, this is just someone who has no architectural skill, I would make it even with where the cafe is, and just have this come all across, and now you kind of bump everything out. But
Okay,
I-
okay,
that's,
I got it.
it's a suggestion without any sort of strong feeling on it. I came
Okay.
up with the concept and I do whatever my suggestion. So I took up, I monopolized a lot of time with that, so I would give anyone else a chance to monopolize time with a strong feeling.
Okay.
Well, you can eliminate the
Feel
book
strongly
sale,
we should not monopolize.
sales.
What's that?
I said I feel strongly we should
Okay,
not monopolize.
then let's go on to the finance
Just
committee.
eliminate the book sale room.
I could live with that. I mean, I like the idea of bookshelf room, but you're right, that would sound
Not
not
necessary, yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll see what the public has to say after their comments, and then revisit.
That's my big, I don't claim to be, it's not like my cafe with Peter, but it's like maybe just a short of that, so.
There's an attractive side to eliminating the book sale room, but there are also, I'd say easily 500 people who love to buy these books.
I buy used books all the time. I think it's a great
We
idea.
have that on Saturday, they come on the second Saturday.
Well, this is also where there's no room to store these books if you
Yeah,
get rid of that room.
But,
So-
and are the women who operate the book sale gonna work, 7 days a week?
We can easily get volunteers, or we can make it an honor system work.
Well, don't, the current system is they just come by circulation.
Yeah, so,
I think that seems to work well enough.
I mean, I like your idea, Herb, but I would then find a different place.
Yeah,
So-
that would be fine. But yeah, that might resolve my problem, is, we find somewhere else.
Maybe over here in the corner.
Yeah. Alright, that's my big thing, you can just let it fall and get something going. Okay, so finance committee, do you want to talk about real estate?
Just very briefly with the real estate transfer, I will check with Chris Lanchette tomorrow. We should have gotten the completed documents back from the county, according to her, by this time, and we haven't. So, but other than that, we have every indication that it was successfully transferred, so. Yep.
Finance committee, budget.
So we have a budget packet.
Great job, by the way, it's phenomenal.
So, everybody have a chance to look at the budget? We've included in personnel, what did we include in personnel? I can't remember.
We included first of all, we included a raise for an employee who's here that we will discuss in executive session later. Secondly, we included a 4% raise for administrative staff because we have to negotiate with administrative staff this coming December 31st is the day the contract expires. Correct. So that's what was added to the budget. So
Did we include a position? I think we did.
yes, I believe we've included a vacant librarian position that's already in the budget. We just carried that seems to me, Margaret, to be pretty rare that someone with 20 years' experience is able to switch libraries.
Correct.
Yeah, because they make too much money for other people to hire.
You can see that we've had, we have $100,000 in the capital reserve fund.
I'm just looking at how it decreased personnel costs, basically I don't know, this is kind of light pink, and it doesn't seem to add up to a decrease.
I don't see that decrease.
Oh, it says decrease from PY, that's why in the notes.
Previous year.
Yeah.
That's the unemployment insurance.
Oh, only the unemployment insurance, okay.
No, we had, we've contracted.
Well, that's when I saw decrease from previous year, I thought it was for all of that, I was so shocked, but yeah, okay.
Any other questions on the budget?
We did add $10,000 to the collection. It's the first time in my 5 years, if you look forward here, that we've added anything to the collection. Part of our thinking there is that there's tremendous growth in the use of electronic materials. It may go that rather than to print materials where the growth is flat. We added 10,000 just because we felt it was prudent at this point to increase our investment in stuff that people check out.
Isn't that material, electronic material available through the Upper Hudson?
Yes, but we pay for it. You know, we buy it jointly, but we still have to expend.
Yeah, so where would the addition, why would we pay $10,000 extra for our share?
Well, first of all, I'm not saying that we would pay all of it for electronic materials, but secondly, all of the libraries in the system, all 29 of them, are asked to consider spending more than 100% of what is recommended that they spend. And many of them spend, so for example, this last year we spent about, I want to say 240% of what Upper Hudson recommended that we spend, because people are clamoring and they're waiting 6 and 7 months for a book, and they complain to me about that. Bethlehem spent almost 500% of what Upper Hudson recommended that they
And
spend.
what did we get for that?
Electronic materials that people can check.
We got extra electronic
Yes,
materials,
yes.
spending the 200 and something percent.
Yep. Now,
And everybody did.
everybody did, although most libraries did. A couple libraries do drag their feet on electronic material, and they spend only 80 or 90% of
Well,
what.
I'm saying everybody can use those.
Yeah, everybody in the whole system can use them.
So we didn't get anything special as Gilderland, just for Gilderland then?
Correct.
You know, if Burns spent only 70% of it, so they got the same thing that Gilderland did.
They did. Yep, you got it.
It's kind of an honor system.
70% of Burns' budget, though, is a lot different than, 10% of our budget. I
Yeah.
mean, the budget is a lot smaller to start with.
The other area we increased was programming and program supply, substantially increased because we feel like that's where the library's headed.
And didn't we also put a fair amount of money into consulting and such related to what we would have our construction project?
I believe so.
Peter, we've got some money in there for a board dinner for trustees.
Yeah, okay.
In words, and in the very near future, I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, it's just 300,000, so yeah.
Oh.
It's open fees. We actually have the fees in the budget for the project. Which looks like now we don't need to be in this budget necessarily. Although maybe we will want to add it before we do the vote, right? That's what you're saying, we might want to move forward. Right. So they are in here, they're in the budget.
No, that's fine, I mean, if they weren't there, we just transfer to capital improvements anyway, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
And actually, just as a free association, a board dinner or retreat for trustees might theoretically be like 3 hours. Like we did this once in 2014, I think. We got the meeting room at Heritage Village, and talking lunch?
33,000 is the sum of all the yellow. So
Oh,
there's 5
okay.
to 15 in there.
Okay.
What is it?
That adds up to 40.
All the yellow lines add up to 33.
Adds
No,
up to 40,000.
40,500.
Oh, no, it's what it was last year, that's what it
Is
is.
that what it is?
Last year, yeah. Last year's
Yeah.
total, yeah.
Oh,
Ah, that's what it is.
there you go.
Last year's total of the yellow, yes. So you can see how much we raised at 7,500. Any other questions?
Did Carol anticipate this and really look it over?
This Carol?
No, the other Carol. So, the only reason I asked, remember the one year when she didn't look it over and we ended up messing up the personnel line? So.
I think we have someone more capable.
Okay.
I have no problem with her, but it's during tax time. She's
I know.
He already did it.
Easy pass for everyone.
What is it, about 5,000?
Well, I think it's like 1,000, but hey.
Yeah, it's
Dollars, yeah, why
been
not?
great revenue.
Was that Sean's idea?
It was actually Mike Marcantonio, the husband of Roseanne, who works here. And then Mike, you should know, has taken it back for.
You did one last year, right?
He did take one last year.
Either way.
It's been a great thing. People really enjoy being able to do that.
That gentleman that came to the meetings.
Oh, yes, Carlos, I don't quite remember his last name, but let me check on him. He has not checked on it.
We told him, was there.
His name would be in the minutes, because he attended.
Oh, yeah. All right, does anyone have any questions on the budget? We looked it over well enough? Thank you, Chris. I know doing a budget is an exhausting thing, but, all right, you did a good job. And this has gotta be one of the most succinct looking budgets, I have to say.
We are.
Carol, thank you. This is one of the most succinct looking budgets I've seen since I've been here. This is phenomenal. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it says $2,500.
Proposed 2,500. I don't know what the minus 100%.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, where the cyber insurance line is, it's proposed at 2,500 for next year, but the column to the left of that says minus 100%. Because it wasn't budgeted.
Right.
Okay, so.
Fair sheets.
Fines, are they kind of high? Because we may go fine free.
I think we're estimating 35 and we got 50 this year, right? So,
Is that what we got this year?
well, I just happen to know it from elsewhere, but
All right, that's fine.
I don't know if,
As long as it's, as long as we.
I have a good article on that, but I didn't want to besiege you guys with more stuff.
I want to make a motion to approve the budget as presented.
That's not a good idea. Second, all those in favor of our 2018-2019 fiscal year budget? Opposed? All right, it is adopted. Thank you, Chris. All right, what's next on our agenda?
Okay, so I'm giving the policy report, because Karen Carpenter Palumbo can't be here, but Karen has really taken the lead and rounded us up. We've had a couple of meetings, and then we're gonna get to meeting rooms in just a second, but I wanna say that Jenna and Margaret have done a tremendous amount of work in the meeting room policy. In fact, we might as well start with that one. In terms of turning 9 pages of policy from our website into 3 pages and combining 2 documents into one. You can see the suggested changes are highlighted in yellow.
Which one are you doing again?
Meeting room. Yep. Although in the meeting room policy, I not highlighted in yellow. There were so many. There was a tendency in the old documents to warn people 3 or 4 times about the same concept. You know, like if you leave a mess, you're gonna be charged $50 and you might not be able to use the rooms again, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of a hectoring pair of documents. One minor change I can remember on the policy committee forms is that it used to say you needed to have a Gilderland library card, and we changed that to a Gilderland or Altamont library card because those people live in our district as well. So they pay taxes and they should be able to have equal access to our meeting room. You know, we just basically simplified it all in a way that should make it a lot easier for Jenna to take reservations, but also for the public to make reservations. That was our main goal. Missing anything, Margaret, the meeting?
We did away with fees.
We did away with some $50 pre-fees where people would leave a deposit in case they damaged the room, because nobody ever damages the room. So then we have to hold their check, we have to return their check to them, and Jenna's got better things to do than cycle these checks in and out, and it's also an inconvenience to our users. So there was an IT fee of $100. We never found a need for that fee, so we eliminated it. Technology, I don't want to say this wrong, but is getting simpler and simpler, and many people are bringing their own stuff instead of necessarily using our setup. Everything's working fine. No reason to charge people for that since we end up returning it anyway. Just basic, simplification. I can see one change here. There's a disclaimer on the final page. The GPL is not responsible for damage to the property of authorized users of the meeting rooms. And we took off authorized because there are people that come in to use the meeting rooms that aren't authorized. Like we had guests tonight, and if somebody stepped on their eyeglasses, they're an unauthorized user of the meeting room, not authorized. So we figured we'd be more covered by taking that word out. We just made things clearer. We put the correct number of people that each room can hold. The old form had 2 different numbers for one of the rooms in different places on it. So I really personally have to compliment Jenna, bless you, who's an excellent proofreader, because she found a lot of inconsistencies like that, and Margaret, of course, too.
Hey, Karen, have you thought about doing like an online system to reserve the rooms? So I feel like there's got to be a good chunk of your time spent dealing with room reservations. Has that ever been kind of looked at?
You can now fill it out and submit it online, right?
I'm thinking about doing a form, people can fill it out on the form.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, online, filling the form out online, I'm sorry.
Just something.
Make a suggested grammatical.
Sure.
Of course. Please.
With it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All notifications of library cancellation required. So the group is the group.
The group is responsible?
The
You know
group
that?
leader is responsible for notifying.
Got it. So if you, we have, the way policies work, we have to have 3 readings anyway. So another thing you can do is take these home with you and, read them in detail, because the way I think the bylaws are written, they have to be talked about at 2 board meetings in a row and then voted on the 3rd one.
Where's the Barbara Dog Run, front page?
Second page, second paragraph from the bottom, second sentence.
Yeah, notify, oh, yeah.
Group leader is responsible for notifying the members of.
I got it, Jen, and you probably got it too, so, yeah, that's good. So, we're not getting approval tonight anyway, so why don't we set this one aside, and, you guys want to give it a read, in your spare time.
What's the bylaw, it's two meetings and we can approve it?
At the third. Yeah. Now Karen would like to suggest that we change that, but again, changing that requires us to change it and then go through 2 meetings. So
We
might have
did change
changed
it to
one
that.
meeting.
That's what we changed it to? I
I
thought
think
it was one meeting.
did we change it down to 1 meeting about
It's one
3
meeting,
years
and
ago?
then the next time we.
Yeah, maybe that's,
Okay.
yeah.
That's what
Okay.
it is now.
Great.
We definitely did change it though,
Yes,
because it was like
that's-
excessive.
that's-
Try to check to see what it
I'm
was.
pretty sure that's what it was.
Okay, so the gift policy, if you're ready to move on to that, you've got 2 sheets. One says gift policy and one says gift policy waiver. And these documents, all changes are in yellow. A big part of Karen's thinking in general, if you look at, for example, the 3rd yellow marks under gift policy, it says gifts will be evaluated by the director and/or the board of trustees designee. And she's taken off or suggested taking off the board of trustees. She's like, why do we as a board need to think about whether or not to accept a gift? Her belief is that the director should know whether the gift should be accepted or not, and that maybe it's not really a matter that rises to your level. So guidelines for acceptance of gifts and books and other materials are just adding headlines, as is the words monetary gifts. We've struck cash gifts will be accepted and will be utilized at the discretion of the board of trustees, and changed it to cash gifts will be accepted. Those with conditions attached will be reviewed by the director and or the board of trustees. So in other words, somebody gives us $25 now, we're not coming to you and saying, how do you want us to use it? But the policy was saying that we should come to you and say,
Right.
how do you want us to use it? And you could certainly do that as board members, especially with a fiduciary responsibility, but I do it in a blanket sense.
For instance, other gifts,
That's just another heading.
that one should be there.
Oh, okay, the one,
Yeah, there's no two.
okay, thank you. And then the gift policy waiver, we struck these words that referred to a different policy and told you in this policy when the other policy was updated. We thought if you really wanted to know, see it at the bottom of that policy. And then down to the next yellow, when the library receives a cash gift for purchase of memorial books or other tributes, the selection will be made by the director in consultation with the board of trustees as appropriate. Instruct that last phrase. It just doesn't happen very often, and when it does, it's usually $100. We don't want to come to you and say, can we buy $100 worth of books on the Civil War? We just want to do it. Obviously, if it's something big like the Curtis or Classic Fund, we would bring that to you.
Yeah, so it's gonna say if it's appropriate, you can do anything.
Yes.
Spell it out.
And then the last yellow mark on the page is, we wanted to say that the board of trustees might have something to say if somebody wanted to donate, for example, a fabulous coin collection with Revolutionary War, coins in it, we wouldn't just take that and come to you, because when you take a collection like that, you're also committing to preserve it, store it correctly, provide security, and all those are fiduciary. Are you guys ready to go to the exhibits policy? Okay. Now, Brian and Mark and Mike will talk about that, so why don't we go to anti-harassment instead? The anti-harassment policy had a section in it before, or had a suggestion in it, that if you were harassing people, if you were either a staff member or a member of the public harassing the staff, you would refer to the rules for public behavior policy, which has this paragraph that's at the top of page 2 highlighted in yellow, and it said something like, the rules for public behavior policy will apply. We thought it made more sense to just import this paragraph that's at the top of page 2, which says, you break the rules, you 1 morning and they're out for the day. Second offense, you can revoke your privileges up to 1 month. Subsequent offense, you can revoke for up to 1 year. And what we're thinking about here is we're trying to make it more explicit to the public that you can't sexually harass the staff. Now, that might surprise you, but it does happen. The library press has had some articles in it recently about how frequently it happens. Librarianship is a female-dominated profession. About 85% of the library workers in the country are female, and it is it's much more prevalent than you would think. The first thing I did as a male director is ask Margaret, who's worked here longer than I have, and she told me stories that admittedly happened in the past, but are just completely unacceptable. But what we're trying to do here is we're trying to have a document so that if we have to discipline someone for sexually harassing our staff, we can point right to a harassment policy. Is that a fair summary, Mark? Okay. And then that second clause that's in yellow, it basically gives me the power to immediately eject someone if their behavior is just outside the pale. And this would be, for example, throwing things at people, or, we are very lucky at the Gilderland Public Library compared to some urban libraries that, have homeless populations and so forth. We don't have many problems, but we feel like we need to be able to say, calling people epithets in the library is not acceptable, or bothering someone's children in the library is not acceptable. You're out,
We're good there.
So, okay. And then to the exhibits policy, in Part A, basically every once in a while, maybe Mark can speak to how often, but somebody might want to change their exhibit in midstream and we just need my approval to do that. So we added that there. We skip down to F. We want to explicitly let the exhibitor of art in this room have their contact information somewhere in the room.
Even guidelines?
Yeah, I mean, guidelines. Third, the G section. This clarifies our policy, which is our existing practice, that you can't come to the counter to buy a painting or a photo that is in this room. You take down the contact information of the artist, you contact them, you exchange the money elsewhere. And then you can't take the work out of the show until the show is over at the end of the month, which is, it becomes a bad show if they sell 2/3 of the paintings. So, and then we wanted to clarify that you can hold an opening or a public reception, but that there will be no alcohol at it. That's number H, and that all the responsibility for that is your responsibility, not ours. And of course, L on page 2 there is, when we have an exhibit go up, we have to have the ability to remove something if it's unacceptable. So, it basically says we're in charge of your exhibit, you're not in charge of your exhibit. So, we would talk to you and get you to change what you were putting out there. We go to the exhibitor's agreement inventory form. This is a security measure because artwork is valuable. So if you put 20 paintings in here and you value them at $200 each, and somebody steals one, it's good to have an inventory of what was in the room. Mark has a great practice that he does since Mark manages the exhibits. As soon as the exhibit is mounted, he walks along with his cell phone and takes a video of it, which is a great thing, but a written document is good as well. And we struck this, I agree that no cleaning solvents or chemicals that would cause noxious fumes to enter the library will be used in conjunction with my display. We're not quite sure what people were after when they wrote that, but it hasn't happened in anyone's memory. And then lastly, to the short page called Exhibits Policy, we struck philosophy and safety requirements established by the Board of Trustees, because as far as we know, there is no art philosophy or there are no safety requirements established by the Board of Trustees. And Karen furthermore thinks there shouldn't be a excessive caution in the previous policy is kind of how it struck the committee. Certainly open to questions, and obviously we're bringing this back next month, so,
Sounds like you guys did a very thorough job.
That's good.
thank you. Thank you.
Ujjain.
Who's on the
Go MG.
policy committee? Good job.
Barbara's got a question on harassment.
Having been the chair of that, glad you guys are doing it. Because I hated it.
I wish we could find you. Erin has a very strong personality, so don't be afraid to speak up to her.
Actually, I think she's been great.
Yeah, those meetings never last more than 30 minutes.
Wow, you guys accomplished a ton in 30 minutes.
That's because Jenna and Margaret have done
Oh, they
so
did
much
everything, so
work,
you're like, all right, yeah. You did that.
behind the scenes, that we can just come in,
Yeah.
handle business, and take off.
And she definitely listens, Karen. She takes things very fast, but she lets everybody in.
She's very clever.
Yeah, so
So you can.
I'm not mad about
Very
it.
cool.
it's been a positive experience.
Yeah, I've been on it with members that are very, we're not afraid to get into the weeds, and it can be, take a long time.
You really can, and I think basically the way Karen's running the committee is that Jenna and Margaret and I, and Mark, when he's applicable with the exhibits, we hash those things out in advance, make a recommendation to the committee. The committee obviously brings their own perspective to it. So,
That's all I can see. Thank you guys for your perspective on
We
that.
have the philosophy of how would you prevent, the neo-Nazis from,
Well, just before we discussed that, we were discussing a separate section where it said, I'm paraphrasing now, but it said, I'm not paraphrasing, the library reserves the right to refuse or remove any material judged unsuitable or to rescind an exhibit for violation.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yep.
Mhm.
Haven't-
But we felt like it had to be removed there, because then someone say, well, what is the library's philosophy?
Right.
And then we would have to produce that, and we weren't prepared to
When
do
it
that.
says the library, I guess, is that you, is that us? Is that clear of
Does that
who
mean-
the library is?
Does that
When
need to be
it should be
clarified?
able to remove?
I don't think that's clear.
You don't think it has to be clarified? So who's the library in this scenario?
Right there.
Oh, I went to the library.
It says in that the library, the director is authorized to ensure the approver of actor showing of any exhibits pursuant to the library's mission.
So essentially, you, okay, that's
I
fine.
think the
That's what
initial,
the director says, remove it, it's only they can remove it, so anybody can collaborate.
I mean, obviously you could get into a censorship situation, which to me, you'd want to, at that point, you want to bring it to the board anyway, because it becomes a bigger issue than,
That was my question. Like, can I go up and like, oh, I don't know, this is terrible. Is there something?
it's a good question, because as people know, we have had board members who objected to books, for example. Books are different than exhibits, but everybody's standards are a little different. We had an exhibit in here a year or two ago from Fred Reglia, who runs the Esperance Arboretum, and he has paintings of trees. And the paintings, if you look at them long enough, you see that inside the tree there's some human figures, and one of those human figures was not fully clothed, but it was so subtle that, one person pointed it out to me and was kind of half apologetic and embarrassed and said, I really don't have a problem with it, but did you realize? So,
Well, no one else is concerned. I'm certainly not overly concerned.
Sorry, say anything that's like anything.
Oh, I just went like the
Or
library.
anything that's like
It's the
that.
library.
Right.
that's a good idea. Yep. I would like some guidance from,
Yeah, I was wondering, I didn't think it was you, I was like, I don't think it's.
so, we,
By the way, I did ask Jennifer online, what you sent us, so you can just take the online form and type into it and send it in all typed up. That's what I did.
you can do that. What I would like to ask, I mean, Jenna could type them if, for example, Karen wants to handwrite them, but we felt that you guys as a board were a little unclear. We don't know if we're supposed to be emailing these out in advance or right after a committee meeting
You
happens.
set a precedent yet. Is there a strong feeling?
Well, I don't think with the personnel one.
Right.
Should be done.
So it's still personnel.
I think it should happen for the meeting.
So should we see them beforehand? I guess that's the question, should we see these minutes beforehand? Well, you generally send them out beforehand.
I often do.
For the
because I-
personnel things?
Not
I wouldn't think
personnel,
so.
but everything else.
Everything else, yeah. I'm
Well,
not, we,
well, you have the policy ones in your, in the kit here.
I feel like they don't have to be, as long as they're part of our packet.
And Jenna gets the packet done in advance, so we can pick them up
Right.
in advance, and we feel strongly about seeing them.
How about if we make sure they're in the packet and you, the committee chairs, other than personnel, use their own judgment if they want to send them out to the rest of the board?
And ensure that they're legible.
Yeah. Yep. So I think it's almost always the case that either myself or Margaret or Jenna would be at a board committee meeting, so we can keep an eye on them, and if they're not legible, we'll have Jenna pick them up.
So what's that?
you're good. Okay. All right, so policies have been examined, we're good with policies? Okay. So, do we know what the bylaws say?
Next,
I believe it's the next meeting.
Well, we should probably take a look at that at some point, yeah, just so we know, okay, so, UHLS,
Okay, the big thing that the Upper Hudson Library System did since our last meeting was Library Advocacy Day, which was held on the 28th of February. And several of us were there. What'd you say?
Good times.
were you there? You heard?
I was there, Noreen was there.
I saw that creature thing. What was that?
Albany Public's mascot.
Peter wasn't able to go.
He was friendly.
So
He was
anyway,
very
there
good.
was a huge number of people there.
That was a big turnout.
Yeah.
You guys were successful, obviously.
The hugest number of people at any library advocacy day, the president would be proud. That's the numbers. Okay. And one of the things that was given out at that was this card with all sorts of statistics from the Upper Hudson Library System Services, the Library Services for Youth, for all the technological service, and all the numbers to knock the socks off of the legislators, just how much has been done and how much can be done. Another thing that was done at these sessions was indicating to these legislatures just what terrible shape some of the libraries are in and the necessity for more money for capital projects. Tim has already said that the Assembly and Senate has put in an extra $55,000-$60,000 into it. Millions. But the one thing about that, the one caveat is that half of that money will go to New York City.
Oh, okay, that I did not know, so.
That's what Tim Burke told us yesterday, and that's, so even though half of the money is going to New York City, it's still, worthwhile, and still a good thing. But we did accomplish quite a bit there. At the meeting yesterday, we reviewed the Upper Hudson Library System award criteria for youth programs, adult programs, trustee of the year, volunteer of the year, and library advocate of the year. Because we have to start doing that pretty soon. The nominations are going to be due sometime, in the middle of April. We had April 15th as a date, but that's a Sunday night. So Tim said, he'd work on that. Probably be an extra week. Have you thought yet about if there's any nominations that the Littleton Library was?
I
directors can nominate, say, a trustee?
Directors can nominate the
Yes.
trustee of the year, volunteer of the year, library advocate, and the programs. Those are the 5 award categories. Advocate is not done usually every year. Last year, it was done, and Hugh Farley, who retired from a 40-year career as a champion of libraries, he got the award, but for 11 years prior to that, there had not been an award presented. There are very definite criteria for those awards, particularly trustee and volunteer, and those criteria were things that were discussed at the meeting yesterday, and we went through all of those things, and that information is sent to the library directors. And, this has to be someone who has performed, well over and above the usual, duties of trustee and volunteer, a volunteer who single-handedly constructed a room at the library or something. They've got one of those in one of the, or trustees who have, worked tremendously to sell the plan to expand the library, someone like that, not just for, usual duties, and not as a longevity award for someone who's retiring after 15 years as a trustee. Those people will be recognized differently. This award is not for that. This award is for someone who has been doing something. They could be doing it over a number of years, but it has to be, included in, in this past year, a culmination and whatnot. But anyway, the board doesn't, really have anything to do with these nominations. And let me see what else. There was the annual reports from the member libraries were received, and the Upper Hudson Library report was approved for this also. There's an Upper Hudson Library expedition in 2018 for anyone who's interested. It's visiting all 29 member libraries in the 36 locations, and then signing up as a visitor to that. It's become a 36er, which was named after the Adirondack 46ers, people who've climbed all the big peaks of the Adirondacks. This is for people who visit all the libraries.
Maybe you should do something where you walk to all of them,
Oh, yeah, the Campo de San Cristo.
Yeah, we can do that, and set up like refreshments at each of the libraries, you walk, like 10 hours later.
Could have a golf hole at each one of the 36.
Well, there are a couple of people from the Upper Hudson Library System who go to the Public Library Association Conference in Philadelphia next week, so I'm sure we'll get some sort of report at the next meeting on that. And that was pretty much it. Other than that, there were some libraries, trustees who reported on what was going on at their libraries. And that's really about it. Everybody here had their core trustee training. So, other than that, there was, the budgets were approved,
Okay, so, you've all read the report, right? So just two things that I would highlight is one that we aggressively moved into the cutting the cord concept. So we're circulating cord cutting devices. I think this may have been Sean's idea.
That's a great idea.
And they are circulating very well. I wrote a piece for the Spotlight, I believe, or Our Town, one of those, and it's.
Our Town.
Our Town, thank you. It's been well received. We're adding more cord cutting devices because they're flying out there. The other thing is, whether you're a member of the board or a member of the staff, this library, and certainly if you're a patron, this library offers so much that I think it would be almost impossible to find somebody who knows everything that we offer. But every one of you that owns a tablet or a laptop, I'd like to suggest that you download the free Flipster app
Oh,
and
it's great.
get familiar with it. 60 or so magazines. I love the New Yorker, but I don't want to pay $70 a year for a magazine. I get it free now on Flipster.
And you can read it, I mean, it's easy.
It's very easy to
Great.
use. The other thing about ebooks and e-magazines, like when I started here 5 years ago, and I'm taking no credit for this, but a lot of the apps were clunky and they quit on you and so forth. Flipster is like reading an actual magazine,
That's right from the App Store. and just-
Yep, Flipster is right in the App Store, and the one thing you can do that you can't do with your actual magazine is make the type bigger, which,
You can access it right on our homepage.
Yeah.
There's a box right on our homepage.
and, I would recommend that once you get familiar with it, you tell your friends, because,
My wife uses it.
good. So, but other than that, I don't really want to go through all this. A lot of it's already been covered in other sections of today's board meeting, so.
Well, the New Yorker sends deals out every year.
They didn't even, they must not like me, because not only did they not send me a deal, but they didn't tell me my subscription was up. It just stopped coming. So, anyway,
I think that Library of Things area too is fantastic with the screen. It's really nice.
thank you.
I
And
do have some suggestions for games.
Okay, good.
Can I give you, because I'm a big game person.
Okay.
Those are all true tested, viable games.
Okay,
These are board games.
great. Thank you for the suggestions. We did not have a report this week, or this month, this pair of months from Phil Berardi, he and his wife had a baby, and he's due back on Monday. But typically, his report includes what has circulated the most, and for probably 4 of the last 6 months, the highest circulating item has been the folding tables. Good stuff.
Tell Phil, congratulations. Okay, so.
Oh, wait, the annual
First,
report.
oh, yeah, it's gonna be important, yeah.
So the annual report is in your packets. I put a few highlights of the annual report in the director's report. I think one thing we need to keep in mind, we have 21,000 DVDs. 10% of the stuff in the building is a DVD, but it's almost 50% of the circulation. So as a board and as management staff, as streaming and internet speeds get higher and higher, hopefully a good product will emerge that libraries can offer to allow their patrons to stream movies. But it might be contentious, because why would Netflix and Amazon and Walmart and other people want to let that happen? But-
Doesn't New Public Library do that?
They do some of it, but, and from what I've seen of it, like it's an awesome source if you want to see like a Spanish documentary from 1942. But if you want to see The Shape of Water, it's not going to do it, and I personally like what they're doing down there. But we need to just keep this in mind, that half of our circulation may become outmoded in the next 5 years, so.
Shape of Water just came out of DVD.
Right, and streaming, so.
Can I ask you about, it seems like circulation of children's materials took a big drop.
No, it took a big jump. Kids circulated 30,000.
Oh, yeah, I was
more.
thinking previous year was,
Yeah.
all right, then that's what changed it, well, that's great to see.
I wanted to mention that it seems like the maintenance report is all stuff that other people did, not our maintenance.
Okay,
Stuff that's kind of, it'd be nice to say what the maintenance department did, besides telling people
I'm sorry.
1,536 people, they request to join the steering committee. How did you pick those out?
I picked the people who are basically the adult list, people who special events, and people who routinely open our emails. So that's the selection I made. And I'm glad, we've got 10,000 names in the database. And, my initial inclination was, well, Tim said we can only get 2 or 3 people. Maybe I should send it to the whole database. Let me just do this little testing. I'm glad I didn't send it to the whole database. It would have, well, do the math, we'd have multiples of hundreds of people. So that's why, anyway, to answer your question directly, that's why I picked those people who routinely open our emails and are, supporters of the library.
So now for the next 2 meetings, would you want to send it out to the whole community, that you have emails for?
If that's what you all would like me to do, I could do that, absolutely, I could do that.
I think-
We're trying to reach as many people as we can,
Yeah.
so.
Absolutely, I could do that, yeah. Okay. You give me
Well,
the
that-
dates, I'll script it up.
That might explain why we have such a high open rate, because they are the high openers.
Exactly, yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Do that. Thank you, Margaret.
I certainly agree.
So the sign is still a problem.
Although it did get fixed today, the parking lot
But I
lights.
mean, problem, we're not sure if it's gonna continue not giving us problems later.
Up until now, although.
This was a part failure. I mean, there have been, that sign has, there have been problems with power. There have been problems with a part failure. That was the problem this time. There's also a problem with the software. And then prior to that, one of the problems we had was just related to power. The thing was underpowered. It wasn't getting the juice it needed to do its job properly. I think now, we've had some wood to knock on. I think now we got it, because the contractor and I, we were out there all morning, cleaning the thing out, putting it in the part and everything else like that. And I think
So is it still under warranty?
it is under warranty for parts. It is not under warranty for labor. The guy who has been, who installed the device, actually said to me today, I'm coming out here on my own time. So I'm going to talk to Tim about that, see if we can't help this guy. The warranty only covered parts, not labor.
It seems like we got like a limit of a sign.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'm not necessarily going to disagree with that, but the problems we've had with parking lot lights and then the problems we've had with lights in here have led me to have discussions with Lou lately that I think we may have some systemic problem in our electricity supply that was causing a lot of these other problems. And, we've had energy audits, but they're usually about the amount of energy you use, and plus they were both back in 14 and 15. So at some point I'm beginning to wonder, we've called electricians for problems, but is there a sort of a forensic electrician who can come in and find out if your system?
Well, if we're gonna do this work, they're gonna have to
Yeah.
check it all out anyway, and so I think then's the time to do it.
Is there a problem with the lines from National Grid?
Could be.
As to your point, Chris, about the lemon of the sign, I'm working with Tim, but I will say that that is the only brand of that sign in the area. Everything else is Daktronics. That's the only EBSCO sign in the area.
Well,
Hopefully we're not like, 3 years from now, spending all this money to this sign, that's all.
yeah.
Was there a reason, Mark, that we went with EBSCO versus the Textronics?
I think it was a matter of money. It made me think of,
Sometimes you have to pay for, right?
it made me think of Alan Shepard when he's laying in that capsule about to get blasted off into the sky. Alan, what are you thinking about right now? Well, I'm thinking that this thing was built by the lowest bidder. Okay, so.
All right, we good with
Note page 10 of the director and staff reports, it's a picture of the group at library advocacy day.
And the suggestion from Lisa that we buy a cow costume for If someone gave us a cow festival, I would be happy with it.
Alright, let's get back on track here. What, do we approve the director's staff report?
To approve the directors and staff reports as presented.
Second.
Alright, those opposed? So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Now, we also have to approve the annual report.
I make a motion to approve the New York State annual report.
Second.
Somebody-
Learning.
Okay. All those opposed? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Are you playing that?
I'm
reverse-
just trying to set everyone, mostly for my own benefit, really. Alright, new business, GPO plaques.
That was my area of,
That's why you
Changing her.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
that's
plaques in the library that are, it's too dark to see, I know that, but I went to add names and dates. There's not enough room. The way it's set up, you have to shift it, some columns depending on the terms of office that they've served, and we've got to think of another way to do it. I just didn't want people to think I forgot about it. It's just not doable in that current format, so I think we have to rethink what we want to do. Also, there are names that are missing from there, that I went back into the archives, and I thought, well, why aren't they up there as well? So I'll need to present a couple of ideas when I find something that's appropriate to see how the board feels about it, but I didn't forget about it.
You want me to
It's just
set
that-
up a committee for it? I'm joking, I'm kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
I'll work with Jenna and Tim and Mark.
There you go, that's perfect.
It seems to me you could just do it.
Yeah,
You really can.
Do what you think is best.
well, do I have a dollar limit to spend?
I think we should spend whatever is.
I will defer, I still defer to
Here's
the
what I'd
board
like
before I
to
make
throw
it.
out.
Let's take another logo. Yeah, let's go with it.
How would you guys feel, without spending too much time on it tonight, how would you feel if it was an electronic display board? So that it could be changed as software?
As long as it's EBSCO, I'm not.
Display we have,
We have 100 electronic displays in here that we don't have, so.
Yeah.
We gotta, so here's, being devil's advocate, but we're 50 years old, 60 years old as a library. That's a lot of trustees.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, this much space for every trustee is gonna be half the lobby.
Did the trustees start 60 years ago? I remember an election where we voted for all 11 at one time.
That was when we were rechartered, but prior to that, there were trustees.
Margaret, isn't it only those who have served a certain amount of time that are up there?
No, it's everybody.
Well, it's not everybody. It
No,
looks
but
like
it's supposed to be
everybody,
everybody.
when
You gotta
this
serve at
building
least 5
started.
years, right?
Pardon?
You gotta serve at least 5 years to be up there?
I think it's 0 to 5, to be honest.
Well, we should probably change it to 5 years. 'Cause that's a term, I mean, you gotta fill, I think you should have to finish a term to be,
Sounds like I should send a committee for this.
right?
If we're thinking about how much space we'll have in the future in our long range planning,
Could have Peter discuss it at the board.
if it
meeting.
wants to.
Yeah.
Why don't we just change this so you
I hope Mario gets through that, or do whatever you want.
Maybe we'll discuss it when we're fresh.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so that's been tabled. Old business.
Wait, I'm sorry, this is handwritten on mine. So based on the annual joint meeting last night, it was agreed that we would set up a committee to update the MOU and that we would look for 2 volunteers from the library board to work with the director of the library, the superintendent, and the lawyers for both sides. It's envisioned that it would be 1 or maybe 2 meetings, weekly split.
Yeah.
So,
We should probably send them the MOU so they can
yeah,
see it, but the MOU is the agreement between us and the school district. They obviously own the property, so it kind of says what we intend to do. I need 2 volunteers to kind of serve on this committee. Just looking over the MOU, it's not super intensive, we don't want to spend a lot of time, but a lot of the MOU is really outdated, so any volunteers?
Neil would probably draft up.
Yeah.
They would like, so it's not.
It will not be it's not a super intensive project. If no one wants to do it, then Karen seems to be very good at this kind of stuff. Oh, no, okay, all right. 2, all right, you 2. Congratulations.
Is one of them like
Yeah.
I would be shocked.
It may not.
I think you should get it done in 1 meeting. You should really push for that. not that intense there.
We get a pizza and get it done.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't, honestly, I don't want you guys to work on that hard, because no one ever looks at the MOU, so,
Could be important, I mean.
it is, but I don't, you're gonna spend
Well,
3 hours looking at it, no one will
Yeah.
see anything for another 10 years, won't see the MOU for 10 years, so. Then they'll just redo it again in 10